Welcome to Transition Talks. This is a series of interviews of former athletes discussing their athletic retirement, their transition away from sports, and what they've learned along the process. My name is Q Williams. I am a transition coach with Athletes Soul. I'm a former two-sport Division I athlete in the Big Ten, and I'm here today with Dr. Robert Parisien. He is a former Division I football player at Brown University. He has an illustrious background and career, is currently a orthopedic surgeon, orthopedic doctor, and we're going to talk about his retirement, his experience with transition, and what he's up to today. He's got some incredible tools and tricks and strategies for how to navigate the transition that I'm really excited for you to dive into and learn from. So I'll see you in there. All right. I am really excited to have Dr. Robert Parisien join us for this transition talk. My name is Q Williams. I am a facilitator and coach with Athletes Soul. And Robert, can I call you Robert on live, like in this metaverse, or can I refer to you as Dr. Parisien?
Q, Robert's fine. We go back. We're good buddies now. So
yeah, well, I'm really excited today to talk about your transition. Obviously, being a former football player transitioning into, your current career. And, it's such an important topic right now, just to talk about how athletes can best manage that transition. And so I'd love to just, kick it off with what your experience has been like, what your transition was like, and what your sports career really, start us there. Like, what was your sports career like, growing up, throughout college and beyond?
yeah, so we can go back to the beginning, and sports. I'd say for me and my family, that just was a way of life. So we were what you would call a prototypical sports family. On TV was either some sort of a game, event, or it was the news, pretty much, and that's what we did. And any sort of travel that we did was related to some sort of sporting event, and that's what we wanted to do. So growing up, I played basketball, football, baseball, ran track competitively, and then my brother and I were both competitive skiers. That's what we did. I grew up in Maine, and again, everything we did was surrounded by sports. And so then, growing up, it was a matter of playing basketball in the winter, and then trying to finish out the basketball practice of the game. Jump in the car, throw on your track, shoes, and then go to the track event, and then just run in the track event right after, or trying to get up to a ski competition at some sort of mountain for Saturday, and then having a basketball tournament game on Sunday, and traveling for that. And my parents loved it, and we loved it, and that was kind of the way of life. And then moving on, I played football, baseball, and basketball, and ran track in in high school. And then I was recruited to play both football and baseball in college, and from multiple different universities, division, all through all the divisions. And then with football, the sort of got recruited by the Ivies, the Patriots, and then Boston College, Colorado, UW, out in Seattle. And then for me, it really just came down to an opportunity to go to the best possible school that I could go to and play at the highest level that I could play at. And so for me to end up working out, and I went to Brown University, and I played football there. I'd say that one of the things that looking back, we always have these sort of athletic. I don't know if it's a regret, but maybe an athletic thing that you wish you kind of had done differently. And I wish I would have played baseball as well as football. But as you well know, at the Division I level, when you're being recruited, they say, yeah, you can come in, you can play football, you can play baseball, you can play lacrosse, whatever you want to do. And then you show up, especially at D1, it's a year-round sport. You have, obviously, with football, you have your regular season in the fall, but there's winter workouts, there's spring ball, and then it gets communicated early on that if you want to play and start on this team, you're going to be around for spring. So then I just chose football.
So true. And I forget sometimes that we have so many parallels in that, because I played two sports at Northwestern in the Big Ten. And it's funny, like one of my best mentors and family friends growing up actually told me to go to Brown because there's something so prestigious about that university.
Smart mentor.
Yeah. And I ended up going to Northwestern, which, like you, was the best option I could get, between that and Stanford. I had two of the best offers you could possibly have, aside from Brown. And so, I can really relate to that. And, also playing two sports, it's so hard to limit yourself and pull yourself back when, you have a passion for multi-sports. And so it's really cool to hear that you were so dynamic, in not only skiing, but, more team sports, right? Like football and baseball and even basketball. What do you feel like, how do you feel like sports has informed your life and helped shape you, you feel like?
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting question, and obviously a huge question. And I think it's very different, right? Because to your point, and especially this being a transition talk, right? I feel like we often view these transitions as you had that one major transition from post collegiate or post professional or Olympic sport or whatever it is into now your adult life. And the way I look at it, we've had multiple transitions. From your high school sports to collegiate sports, and then other people to the next level. And I think those are transitions. I think transitioning out of some sports that you absolutely love to not competing in those sports anymore, even though you still have some sports that you are competing in. So, I mean, for me, transitioning and coming to the realization that my brother and I weren't going to be training for the Olympics. We got invited to go out west, when I was like 12 years old. And train for the upcoming Olympics to compete in bump skiing and aerials. And that was right around the time that Johnny Mosley was doing it and won the gold medal. And it was first, pretty much a new Olympic sport. And then I didn't know at the time, but, my parents had that conversation and said, no, we're not going to send our kid from Maine to go out there at this point in time at the age of 12 or move our entire family. But the point is, it became another transition, maybe because I loved skiing. To say, all right, I can still ski in my life, but I'm not going to train for the Olympics. I'm not going to do this. And then going from high school to college, having to go and eliminate baseball, basketball, track from my life, that was also an adjustment. That was also a transition. And it's still a little challenging one where, I loved football, but now you're playing football year round. And so you miss that transition or that other season where you're going to basketball, you're going to baseball. And so, those were definitely transitions of mine. Now, what did I gain, and how do these things form me of who I am, I guess, and moving forward and help me later on in life? It's different. When I was competing in skiing, you're up at the top of that run, and you're looking down, and there's nobody else there. It's you, and it's only you, and you're by yourself. And whatever happens on this run, it's all on you. Meaning there's no blame. There's nothing else. It's you. And if you don't perform, there's nobody else that didn't perform except for you. Vice versa. If you do perform, yeah, you're the one that made it happen. So it's a very different feeling. I remember being more nervous probably for some of those events than I was for like a football game or a basketball game or a baseball game, because as you know, in football, you get multiple chances. That running back comes through and you miss the tackle. You don't want to miss it, but you're going to have many other opportunities throughout that game to make that tackle. Yeah. You're skiing, you're doing a bump run, your ski pops off, you miss that one bump, you don't hit that jump right. That's it. That's your day. That's your entire event's done. And so I think I learned a lot of things differently, from participating in those individual sports, and then also participating in those team sports where, you did have multiple opportunities. You did have a large group of guys that you could depend on. And then, all these other dynamics that, you and I have talked about many, many times, from coming up being the low man on the totem pole, when you're a freshman, for example, and then being, rising up, being the leader, being the captain in high school, for example, and then, go to college, boom, all of a sudden you're a low man on the totem pole again. Yeah. Everybody else is bigger, faster, stronger all of a sudden. They're more experienced. It's like anything else in life. The more reps you have, everything slows down. You understand it more. You see it better. And that game got fast again all of a sudden, when you're a freshman going in to college. And it's you kind of going through that sort of transition all over again and to working your way up. So
it sounds like you've become like an expert in transition in some ways, right? Like you've been able to move from sport to sport. You've been able to experience all different types of sport and the lessons that come from them, and the high pressure of being in an individual sport and the high pressure of having to communicate with teammates in a team sport. Like it seems very, very interesting. Like you've really got a unique perspective, I think.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think that if you're a multi-sport athlete and you do it, your entire life growing up, then yeah, I mean, I think you gain these unique perspectives that again are similar to other athletes that have done that. And I think one of the issues that we have, and we'll get into that, maybe later on, but as an orthopedic surgeon now that's treating athletes, one of the issues that we do have is with sports specialization. With kids choosing, or maybe families and parents even pushing kids down one very specific path when they're growing up. We see specific overuse injuries right now that, you're using a certain, baseball is a good example. If you're a pitcher, or just a thrower in general in baseball, but if you're a pitcher and you're playing your baseball season, then you're going to play baseball in the summer as well. So you're going spring, summer, throwing all the time. At least when the fall hits or the winter hits, if you're transitioning to football or basketball or track or something, you're giving that arm a rest. And so you're just naturally resting that arm. You're naturally not going to have some of those overuse issues. If you're throwing year round, you're going to have that. Also, you have burnout, right? So like I said, one of the nice transitions that we had is that the next season, for mains, we had the seasons, right? We had fall, winter, spring. So you're looking forward to those seasons, but you're also looking forward to that next athletic season because that's bringing on a new sport that you're looking forward to and you haven't played since last year. And so you didn't have as much burnout in that sense because you were constantly, again, transitioning, to the next one. And so I don't know if we're great transitioners in that sense. I think that we've experienced a lot over the years, and we might like to think that we're great at it. But I think that we're just very used to change, right? I think that as athletes, especially that played multiple sports and then played at different levels, we're just very used to change and having to adapt to different environments. And I think that those are huge, pluses, I think, and things that help us later on in our lives.
It's really interesting. I think you're spot on. And I don't know if you share the sentiment, but I was similar, like where I would play all different sports, and I play on like probably two different teams in football or not football, but like two or three different teams in baseball and basketball. I had like 2 seasons going at the same time. Yep. And it was always really interesting stepping into, getting excited for football season when I get to see some of these guys that I haven't seen in 6 months. Mm-hmm. Stepping into baseball season, like that's fresh smell of like fresh cut grass, and like, oh, there's something new coming, right? And
that's exactly right. And that's the other part of it is that from the social environment, right? How many athletes, especially in high school, right? How many athletes played all of those same sports that you played? There were a few. I would argue probably a handful. The vast majority, you had your football buddies, you had your basketball buddies, you had your baseball buddies, you had your track buddies. Right. And again, there were probably a handful that kind of did all of those or most of those that you did, but the vast majority didn't. They did one, they did two. And so you're right. You then got to reconnect with, or you just expanded your entire network in general, your social network and your support system by playing all these multiple sports. On top of that, I would argue, as I did then, and I still do now, playing multiple sports improves your ability to play the next sport. Right? Yeah. You're learning certain things about yourself, about your body, about overcoming certain obstacles when you're playing those other sports. You're also physically training your body very differently from one sport to the next. But some of those things that you're utilizing in one sport are actually going to benefit you in that other sport. You don't realize how it's going to happen, but it certainly does.
You're spot on. That's how I've always felt. I always felt like being a baseball player made me a better football player. The way that I could track down a ball and the drills I would do for baseball in the outfield, like I was taught those things and they translated into being a tight end in football and having to adjust to a ball on the fly. And interestingly, great example would be Pete Carroll introduced the rugby style tackle into USC and then eventually the Seahawks. And it's now like becoming like the gold standard for how to keep your head out of a tackle. We talk about concussions a lot. Right. Applying a rugby-based philosophy, it's called hawk tackling for those that are interested. I just think it's fascinating how we can learn different tools from other sports too, and you can apply them to make your sport even better and the way you show up in it more powerful. Yeah,
without question. And I think one other thing too, by just playing sports in general, but then also playing multiple sports at different levels, you probably can't. It would take us a while, right? If we sat here and I asked you to go through every coach that you've ever had, guarantee you wouldn't be able to name them all, right? Not that they're not memorable. You've had so many at every different level, and how different are they? And they kind of have to be different, right? Because what takes a successful coach in Pop Warner versus high school versus college is different,
Great point.
But then for all these sports that you have, so eventually at some point in time, not every, right? We've seen examples, but the vast majority of athletes that succeed at all these levels, and especially at the upper levels of, say, Division I, professional, Olympics and stuff, they're pretty coachable. And at some point in time during their growth, they learn how to be coachable, right? They want to get better. They want to be coached. They look for that coaching. They search for that coaching. And then when you get out into life after sport, you're used to being coached. And you are a coachable individual. You want critical feedback. And I would even argue, and you let me know how you feel, but if you're not getting critical feedback, it feels abnormal. You're not sure what to do with that. It's like, because and you've been trained since you were young that, fine. Positive feedback is always a wonderful thing. Everybody wants to get a pat on the back, high five. That's all important. But in addition to that, you're looking for that critical feedback. You're looking how to improve, because what did you do, especially at the collegiate level, right? And even they're doing now at the younger levels. You're watching film of every single practice. You're watching film of every single game. Every move you make is on film, and it's being scrutinized and it's being highlighted. How come you went high? You should have gone low. How come you made this move? You should have made that move. And you're even dissecting yourself,
right?
All in ways in which you're trying to improve. You're looking at that saying, okay, how could I have gotten there faster? How did I miss that? And so I think you then progress into life. You're very coachable because you're looking and you want to be coached, but then you also know how to, sort of take every environment and figure out what and how can I learn something from this experience right now.
Right. I was just talking about this earlier with someone else that, sports are really like the best environment for like A/B testing. It's like something that's very common in marketing or in, entrepreneurship and tech, right? Like you change something and you get immediate feedback as to whether it worked or it didn't work. I remember I used to love going into the film room after practice. I loved to be able to watch what happened from like 3 different angles. And I just loved like scrutinizing it, like celebrating myself too. Like, wow, like I really took the coaching and I applied it in that moment. And there's something really cool that happens kind of in your brain when you see yourself adjust and grow and get better over and over and over. You can see it from a third person perspective, and you can hear someone in the third person actually share with you and coach you. I
was with you.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you 100%. I mean, I lived in the film room. You're exactly right. And beyond that, I was someone that I just soaked up knowledge for the game, whatever sport I was playing, right? And it was natural. I didn't do it. You did it intentionally, but I did it intentionally because I actually enjoyed it, And so, I would know a lot of the history of stuff. And I used to remember, and I've always viewed it this way, and I still view this about life in general and my life as a surgeon, for example. The more I knew as a quarterback, right? I played quarterback and safety in football. The more I knew as a quarterback about everybody else's job, the better quarterback I was going to be and the better leader I was going to be. So it wasn't enough that as a quarterback, I need to know what I'm doing on the play. No, I need to know what my running back's doing. I need to know what the center's doing. I need to know what the guards are doing. I need to know that what keys are they looking at, what my wideouts are doing. And the more I know about their positions and their specific jobs, which, takes time to learn, the better quarterback I'm going to be, the better teammate I'm going to be, but also the better leader I'm going to be. And I can understand more of the environment that I'm in. And I think these things are things that definitely correlate to life after. And that's why when I went to college too, when film really became a big thing, I lived in the film room, to your point, like you did. I loved it because I always wanted to look at and try to, figure out ways in which I could get better. And on top of it, when I was looking at the opponents and studying their film, I took it as a personal challenge I want to know what you're going to do before you know what you're going to do, because I've studied that much film and I know your tendencies that well that I'm more prepared for you than you guys are prepared.
Right. I love that. I think it really lends itself to the idea of being curious about the why behind what you're doing, and like why you would be doing, a certain task as a quarterback or as a wideout or anybody on the field, even the defense, as you said, like, why are they, Why are they adjusting their stance in this way? Like, what does that tell me, right? So understanding not just like the little cues, it's kind of like in history class. I don't know if you remember this, like just learning history. Often you'd be told like dates and names and like historical figures, but often like I didn't get the why behind it. I didn't get the story behind it.
Right.
And I think when, if you only remember dates and names in your playbook and in life, you're missing like the why, and you're missing like true understanding. So when
we can all memorize things, right? We can all memorize and go back to your point of the history, for example. But even, when you're playing sports or you're living life, and certain people memorize better than others, but the point is we can all memorize. If you don't have that context behind it, then it loses its meaning, right? So when you have context behind why you're learning this thing, to your point, then it provides context and therefore provides meaning to that. On top of that, when you're talking about studying for exams or learning history or even studying another team's tendencies and whatnot, the more you figure out what that why is, and you study that, you're going to remember these things, right? Is it going to have a meaning? Therefore, you're going to remember it, and you're not going to have to worry about trying to memorize these things. It's all going to make more sense.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I find too, and I feel like this concept can really apply to the everyday former athlete or the person that's in transition, because it can be very overwhelming to take on your first job, or maybe to be in medical school. Taking on something new and being a beginner at something. I'd love to hear more about your transition in a minute here, but in transition, it can feel overwhelming, and often it can be like, oh, I just got to get X, Y, and Z done. I got to get my checklist done. I just got to do what they're telling me to do. And I think in those moments when we're overwhelmed, we can lose contact with the why. We can lose contact with the context with what we're doing. And to me, that's really where leadership comes in. That's where, the juice of things come in. Like when you understand the why, you understand the context, you can have more buy-in from yourself. You can be really committed to what you're doing. I'd love to hear like what your transition was like, obviously, but what do you feel like, how do you relate to that? That concept of like applying that. Maybe it happened in your transition where maybe you felt overwhelmed at times when you were taking on new initiatives.
Yeah, I think that again, like I said, some of the things that prepared me and I think prepares us, athletes for those things and individual sport athletes, tennis, skiing, things like that is, I think, as well as team sport athletes. But much more of what I did was team sports, and I played team sports for longer. So I think that those things, again, as I said before, really prepare you very well for change. We know how to adapt to change, because the only consistency in life, really, or one of them, is change, right? And so whether you like it or not, change is coming, and it's going to happen. You might be a part of that change, or that change might happen to you, and you have to react, and you have to react to it, just like sports, right? That game's going to happen, and you're going to be judged on how you react to that environment. That's how life is. We can prepare and we can prep all we want, which we should, because I go by the saying is that, everybody says, oh, you're so lucky, well, yeah, it's really where, luck is really where preparation meets opportunity, right? Yeah. You've prepared yourself very well for an environment. Then an opportunity happened, right? You were then prepared to meet and take advantage of that opportunity, right? Yep. That's where luck is, in my opinion. So when everybody says, hey, Q, you're so lucky that this happened. Well, yeah, I'm lucky, or I'm fortunate that opportunity presented itself, but I was prepared and ready to meet and take advantage of that opportunity. And so again, you can prepare yourself for all these things, but then life kind of happens. And even if you're feeling overwhelmed, that's where I go back to our athletic backgrounds. When you went to Northwestern and you were a freshman coming up, and boom, all of a sudden you're down low man on that totem pole. Yeah, you were probably stressed. You probably had some anxiety. You weren't the player that you thought you were sometimes. Maybe you started doubting yourself a little bit because, again, you're playing in a different environment now. Everybody's bigger, faster, stronger than, where you just came from. But what did you do? You jumped in, right? You prepared yourself best you can, but at some point in time, you got going. You just jumped in and you started playing. And so I think at some point in time, you prepare yourself all you want, but it's a matter of of just having that confidence that you just need to get going, you need to jump in, and then you will adjust and react and respond appropriately once you get there. And I think athletes have done enough of that you're more confident, you're a little better at being comfortable as you can in that type of environment.
I think you're spot on. I think that's one thing that, athletics really teaches us is to be prepared for the opportunity, be prepared to meet the moment with the preparation. I can't tell you how many, you talk about practice, preparation, all the study, everything you got to do to be your best. I think there's also this component that you mentioned, which is, there is no such thing as luck. I believe in that. I share that sentiment. I really believe that we create opportunities for ourselves, and then we decide to meet those opportunities in the moment. So I think the other side of this coin is also creating opportunities for ourselves. I think in some ways sports prepares us to do that, but I'd love to hear a little bit more of your transition journey and like what it was like for you and maybe how that fits in. How did you create opportunities for yourself, and how important was that along your journey?
So for me, I had some injuries when I was young. I had some surgeries, as a young athlete, and I got exposed to and I got to meet and was treated by some very good orthopedic surgeons. And one of which was a non-operative sports, physician. And these guys were the team docs for U.S. Olympic soccer, women's soccer team. So like when Mia Hamm and Brandy Chastain and them were part of the team, they were the team physicians for them. And they happened to just, have a practice and be Maine guys. And so, when I got injured in Maine, I went to, Portland, was treated by them. Well, at that point in time, I was a young athlete. You don't know how serious things are, especially when you hear surgery. And you're nervous. You're nervous about, am I going to get better, or how serious is this? Also, can I play again? And if I can play again, can I play at the same level? Or is this something that's going to bother me moving forward? All of these unknowns that exist. Well, I was in good hands. They were, instilled a lot of confidence in that process for me. I had my surgeries, or I was managed non-operatively for other things. And I was able to get back and compete and have a long, successful athletic career. And so for me, that was a very special time. And so I wanted to be an orthopedic sports medicine surgeon and be a team doc. And so I went into Brown Pre-Med, but Division I football, right? So I got into Brown Pre-Med, and I said, wait, how can I get a 3.940 GPA pre-medical and play Division I football year-round, where I got Saturday games, Sunday, because people don't realize you get Saturday game, you come back, you still got Sunday practice, you get Sunday lift, and then you got Monday film session. And you better be in the film room, and it's challenging if you're going to be in the library studying and then be in the film room at the same time. Anyway, I switched to economics, and I became an economics major, and I graduated with an economics degree. And so then I went and worked in sort of business for a period of time. So I actually worked in New Delhi, India for about a year and a half. I had an incredible opportunity to go out there and work for a large engineering conglomerate out in New Delhi. And to your point about being prepared and stuff, nothing I ever did ahead of time prepared me for the expectation of having to live and work in India, for example. But when an opportunity presented itself, I try to, gather all the information that I had, at hand as we do in life, and as we did when we were being recruited, and why you chose Northwestern over this other school. You didn't know how everything was going to line up, but you trusted yourself. You took all the information you had at hand and said, you know what, this is a good next step for me. I feel comfortable, and I want to take this one. And so I did. I went to New Delhi, India, and I worked in business development for a large engineering conglomerate out there. Had an incredible experience from a business perspective as well as a personal and cultural perspective, and it's an experience that I would never want to trade ever again. In that sense, I would do it all over again if it presented itself. Then my transition from there was going to be come back to the United States. I knew I wasn't going to live there forever. Come back to the United States, go into finance. So when I came back, I was looking into work and transitioning from that. I had a job offer in New York for a M&A firm in New York doing mergers and acquisitions in finance. I simultaneously, through some Brown alums, got a job offer to work in LA as a junior agent for a creative artist agency. And so I went and entered the offer, and I went to LA, lived in Santa Monica, and worked for creative artist agency as a junior agent at representing actors, actresses, writers, directors, producers. And so I did that for about a year. And during that process, same thing. Met some incredible people, learned the business. At the same time that I was learning that, you know what, this wasn't an environment or a business for me forever for the long run of my life. I'm learning a lot of incredible things that I will likely take with me in life, and then also just meeting some great people. And so during that process, I then kind of came back to what I originally was interested in, called up my team docs of the past, same guys that treated me when I was young, who I'd stayed in touch with over the years, as well as my team docs from Brown and elsewhere, and had the conversations and figured out a way in which I can go back into medicine. So I had to go back and get all my prerequisites for medical school. So I did that, got accepted to NYU's post-baccalaureate pre-medical program, came back, did all my prerequisites for medical school, and then transitioned on to medical school at Tufts and my orthopedic surgery residency and multiple fellowships, and from there on out. But it was a matter of getting to these points in your lives and realizing that it's okay if you went down a path that you don't see forever for yourself. There's still a lot to be learned that is going to be valuable for you in the future. Also, I had a great experience in the moment, so I don't view that, and I never have viewed that as wasted time. I learned a lot. And so when I finally came back to medicine, I was slightly older coming back into it, but again, I just used that and to my advantage. I was a little more mature. When I went to NYU, I treated it like a job. I got up and I lived in the library. I also looked around and said, wait, I don't have practice in the afternoon. I don't have a game on Saturday. I don't have lift on Sunday. I mean, I had all this time compared to when I was at Brown to just live in the library and study. And so, I lived probably maybe too much, but I was 7 days a week. That was my apartment. That's where I lived.
It's pretty cool because I see how this relates and correlates to your sports career too, being so diverse, and so multi-passionate. I don't know. I almost see, the downhill skiing sort of side of you as like the creative arts, the agency. And I see you're about in economics and finance and even in medicine as you're like team sports. There's something so interesting about that. And I think it's what really makes you so dynamic, which is cool. And it feeds into exactly what we talked about earlier, how, your skiing career was translatable into your other sports. And along the way, you do pick things up and exactly staying present in the moment, like enjoying what you're currently doing and not getting burnt out by it.
Right.
I mean, how long has it been for you in medicine now? How long have you been practicing medicine at this point?
Yeah. So since going back to NYU, I'd say it's been about 15 years of a process.
Yeah.
And so it's a long time, and it's a commitment, and it's really a marathon, not a sprint, right? So coming back into it, I had to then at that point in time have enough conversations, gather as much information as I possibly could. To really be confident that I was making the right decision, especially knowing the length of time that it was going to take in the medical field. And I did. And as I've said many times, there again, have absolutely zero regrets in doing that. I'm so glad I made that decision back then. Everything is challenging as you go through, and some aspects more challenging than others. But to be honest, I think that was another thing that we learned by playing all of these sports, being athletes our entire lives, and then going and transitioning to that next level, dropping yourself to the bottom of the totem pole again, because there was a new challenge. There was always these new challenges. And to me, I loved stepping up to and trying to and attempting to meet those challenges. Right. And so when you showed up in Northwestern, as maybe the anxiety hit in, as nervous as you might have been, there was also this fire inside of you and this excitement that here's a new challenge. Here's these guys that are bigger, stronger, faster than where I came from, but I love it. I want to be that. And not only do I want to be as good, I want to be better than them. And then I want to be the one who's leading the next generation of guys that are going to come behind me to do that. Right. And so for me, I just was inspired by, and just fueled by these various different challenges. I'm going to go to NYU and I'm going to get that, 3.9, that 4.0. And I'm going to go and I'm going to take that MCAT. I'm going to ace it. I'm going to go, to medical school in Tufts, and I'm going to get the appropriate grades that I need to get and build my network and do all those things out of the classroom that are building my network, that are going to help me when I go towards, residency and fellowship and life after, training and being in an academic environment and helping to move the field forward. So, these were all unknowns too at the time, right? I didn't know
Right.
exactly how things were going to play out. I didn't know exactly what went into a residency and a fellowship as I was just getting
Mhm.
started. You really are learning these things as you as they present themselves to you and as you continue to move forward in
Yeah.
your process. So,
You can be told that residency is going to be crazy, but you never really realize it until you're in it. From what I hear, I'm sure you
it's
can
like
relate.
most things in life. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
It's like most things in life. You can prepare yourself enough. You can talk about things enough. You can hear about things, for a few times, but you really truly do not fully understand something until you're until you're immersed in it.
Hmm.
And then once you're immersed in it, now you understand it.
Yeah, and you're speaking so much to this concept of challenge in the last few minutes that I think is it's really important to really note, like to focus on that. I think because I heard a quote or a saying recently that's really stuck with me, and that's one of the worst things for people, I think especially men, is to be forced to do something they don't want to do, like be forced to work in some field or doing some job that they don't want to do. But what's worse than that is being forced not to work and
Hmm.
not be put to good use. Like,
Well, that's what I was just going to say. That I've always said this, and that's why I said to you before. It's a matter of just jumping in at some point in time. And for us, I
mhm,
think having that athletic background, you always want to be, and I think it's just innate in us. We need to be moving forward, right? I
right.
need to be moving forward. I need to be progressing, and
Hmm.
so and that's what I think that we do. And so
Hmm.
and I think that sports has certainly helped us do that and to continue to move forward in life, despite all of these different obstacles and challenges and things
Yeah.
that are facing us. So,
Right. Yeah. And, constantly seeking out challenges and
mhm.
finding new ways to get out of our comfort zone is what keeps us young. Like our brains and our biology, it keeps us literally young. I think that's what's so cool.
Well, and
Um,
then also what I've sought out as well, right? So I went into there's different avenues you can go into in medicine, right? And I went into sort of
mhm,
more the academic medical route because there is a huge there's a lot of collegiality within this path that I've taken. So I teach medical students, I teach residents. When I was in the office here seeing patients, I had a bunch of medical students and residents that are here learning.
mhm,
And so again, you're now sort of the coach. You're the captain again and you're teaching others, and it's in such an enjoyable environment because for me, that's what I know, right? Growing up, that's the environment that I know. When you're a
right.
senior and the game is now slowed down for you, and you understand it, what are you doing? You're helping. You're being a good coach and captain and leader for the
Right.
junior, the sophomore, the freshman. And so,
Hmm.
for me, that this has been something that I have loved throughout this entire process because medicine and the entire process of medicine and through medical school residency fellowship and then beyond is that similar process of going from your high school team to your college team and then moving on to the next level, and then
Hmm.
you get to then coach and all those behind that are coming up through the ranks behind you, and it's
Yeah.
a great and it's incredibly rewarding environment, and then it just feels more comfortable, right, coming from a team sport to have a lot of colleagues around that are colleagues and friends, and if I have something, I can run something by somebody, or we can be researching on a topic and get on a Zoom these days, right, or go to a meeting and have a bunch of friends slash colleagues that are there that we're all doing research together and working on important research projects together. So
Really cool. It feels like you've created your own team environment post sports in your own way, and that came with some tinkering, right? Like
mhm.
trying things out, finding things that you liked, and eventually coming back to that initial desire of going into medicine. I think it's really special.
Well,
Um,
that's what I said. I think as athletes, we know how to adjust and change, right? When I got into those new environments, as you have in your life, once you're there, then you figure it out. So when I got into residency, when I got into fellowship, I learned a few different things, right? Of course, I learned how to be a doctor and how to be a surgeon, all this stuff, and how to take care of patients. But then you also kind of start learning the different dynamics of the healthcare system and of medicine in general, what the different paths are within orthopedic surgery or even within orthopedic sports medicine. And then you start to understand and realize what might be a good fit for you. But I think
right,
during that process, as an athlete, how many times do you fail? We fail constantly. We fail so many more times than we succeed, right? And so in
right.
life, I think that that aspect helps us. So when I went into, work in India, when I went to work in LA, and that, I didn't take those as failures, that I wasn't going to do that forever in the rest of my life. No,
Hmm.
I viewed it as a path that I attempted, that I went on, that I was glad I did that, and that I gained an experience that was going to now help me into my next aspect of life. That was it.
I love it.
I didn't view it as a failure. I view it as, no, this is something that is going to help me in the next, and that I'm going to take from in a positive way to the next phase of my life.
Such a powerful mindset that, a lot of athletes, even, clients that I work with struggle with that right there.
Mhm.
Is, I want to do something new after sport, but I want it to be the right thing. I don't want to go down and waste time. And, I think it's every athlete's journey to try a few things out. And so I'm going to make sure I send this episode of Transition Talks to some of my clients to hear your perspective. I want to talk.
I think it was also. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say. I think it's also fortunate too, and that I think we can't go without saying is that, yeah, I came from a great family environment as well, right? So my support structure, generally speaking, was very strong, right? Very tight with my parents and my brother as well, and so anytime I had questions or wanted to discuss. Or for any reasons during any of this process, I had an incredibly strong, loving, stable support structure that I could fall back on and lean on, right? Because I
Right.
think we talk about this too. When you're doing all these things, it might sound like, oh yeah, I had this and I went and transitioned here and I was confident to go do this. Sure, that all happened, but it also happened with the backdrop of this incredibly solid support team who was
Right.
saying, yeah, no, I think you should do this, or you know what, why don't you think a second about that one, and really
Hmm.
trying to help me navigate that environment as well. And then once you pick that path, then supporting you and saying, yeah, we're on board, we're going to help you out, because we all need that. We all need that
Yeah.
support structure, whether it's mom and dad and a brother or a good friend or a teammate. We all need those support structures in
Yeah.
place, moving forward in any aspect of life. We never grow out of needing that, right?
It's huge. I mean, that's just a testament to how much we are social beings, and we really
Mhm.
thrive so much better in packs and in teams. And
Yeah.
I want to touch briefly on maybe some of take this turn a little bit as you think about your transition and that whole path. I sense that you were really armed with a lot of amazing support systems, a lot of incredible mindsets that we've gone through. Frameworks for how to think about successes and failures. I'm curious though, were there any moments throughout the path that were, did you experience sadness? Did you experience any regret? Did you experience any of those dark moments that some athletes experience? For the folks that are listening or watching, what was that like for you? Did you experience any of those kind of speed bumps, and how'd you get through that?
Yeah, I mean, without question,
Hmm.
life, and then obviously major transition in life. So not only was I transitioning fields, I was transitioning across country, across the globe,
Yeah.
different cultures and different environments. And so, without question, those speed bumps come up. You start second guessing yourself a little bit. You get a little nervous about this next step, and you do have those ups and downs. When I
Hmm.
say things about, yeah, then I move confidently in this direction, and I said this is going to be something that benefits me later in life. Yeah, that was what I came up to as the conclusion of that part of my life when I then, made the transition. But
Yeah.
making that decision and coming to that, wasn't that clean and easy, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
there were a lot of those moments,
Hmm.
and I can't speak to any major one in particular, but certainly more than I can even count,
Yeah.
of ups and downs, rocky moments, evenings, weekends, things that you're contemplating. Things, is this the right next step? Did I
Yeah.
make the right decision? Even when I went into some of these first jobs, anybody, it's natural you're going to start second guessing some of those things, because you know, not every day is going to be smooth, right? Not every week, not every, is going to be smooth. And it's human nature to start, wondering and questioning some of those things. But generally speaking, I was able to overcome that because I will say it again, I had a wonderfully supportive environment and loving, support structure around me
Hmm.
that were available to me 24/7. And I did take advantage of that 24/7,
Hmm.
because you never know when you're going to be in that moment where you're going to need to pick up pick up that phone or even go visit that family member or your family or your friend or whoever.
Right.
But then through all that experience, I think having that athletic background, having that strong support structure, that got me to an environment where I was then ready to move confidently in that next direction, having
Right.
navigated those ups and downs and those speed bumps and those adversities to overcome that we all come across every day in life.
Right. Right. So it sounds like, really that support structure is absolutely huge. I'm sure it probably bled out, not just in your family, but in, people in your life, coaches, mentors, people that you looked up to. For those people that are listening, with community and mentorship being so powerful and support structure, do you have any tools that really you live by, or any pieces of advice you would give to athletes that are, looking to transition soon and like how to build that kind of, we call it a network, but I think networking can get a bad rap, or it can feel, very corporate, or it can feel
Right.
like, career oriented.
I'm talking about it. Yeah. When I say that, as you know, and as we know, this is a natural network, right? This is a natural family, network,
Yeah.
and family meaning friends, because friends become family. That's what I mean.
Right.
And some are different, and you're going to tap into that network per se differently, because some of that network's going to be a family member that knows you a
Right.
certain way and knows you differently, and the questions you ask of them is going to be very different. Another network is going to be a friend, maybe, Q, for example, I'll call you because we have lived experiences that are similar. And so we
Right.
understand things on a similar level when it comes to certain aspects of our life. And I
Yeah.
have other friends that are, I did residency with, for example. Well, they understand that aspect of my life better than another friend from a different aspect of my life. And so I
Yeah.
think it's extraordinarily important to have, this network, this family friend network moving forward in life. I think it's also important, and I'm probably the biggest culprit of this, not realizing, or not realize, I realize it, but not discussing it and talking about the fact that, yeah, none of us had easy paths and smooth sailing and all these things. We've all had the ups and downs. We've all had to tap into that network, and we all need support. We all need help and a mentor and a coach to help us, during our process. You're not going to get there alone. None of us will. And I would say, I never have. Did I put the work in? Did you put the work in your life? Of course we did. But I needed people to write letters of recommendation, right? I needed mentors to show me and allow me the exposure to decide, oh, this is what I would like to do in medicine, for example, or yeah, that is enjoyable. I needed mentors and individuals who acted as great leaders and mentors to say, yeah, we invite you into the operating room so you can learn this, and I'm going to teach this to you. I mean, so none of us are going to get there alone. We all need that environment. Now, I would also say during that process, when I grew up, my father and I had this thing, and it came down to just a general perspective on things. Every game, every skiing event that I was going to go down and ski that bump run, my dad would always say, "What are you bringing with you?" And the answer every single time was attitude. It was just one word. It was attitude, right? And it was, like I said, every game, every event, and then it became tests. Then it became other aspects of life that were going to be the next challenge. What are you bringing with you? Attitude. That was the answer every single time.
Yeah.
And so my attitude dictated my outcome, right? He knew that. He started saying that to me as a young kid when I didn't fully get what he was saying. I thought, attitude, I'm going to go in with an attitude that I'm going to, a winning attitude or a competitive attitude, or an aggressive attitude, during a football game. Now, obviously, I understand the greater meaning of what he was saying. Your attitude is going to dictate your outcome. How are you approaching this moment in this game, which he was teaching me for life? And so, again, I try to approach that every single time. What is my attitude? What is my attitude approaching this particular obstacle? What's my attitude approaching this case? What's my attitude approaching this patient? What's my attitude approaching individuals in my life? And I try to have the appropriate positive, confident attitude and humble attitude that I possibly can when going through this. So, I think that that is one thing for me, at least, that was instilled when I was younger, and that I've always tried to keep just right there in the forefront is that, my attitude will dictate my outcome. And that's one thing that we can all control, right? We can control our attitudes. I can't control everything that's going to happen around me, but my attitude will hopefully help me be in the right position to appropriately react to that thing that happened in my environment.
Right.
If I'm ready to receive that with the right attitude.
It's so true. And, attitude is free. I say, it's attitude really is everything. It does produce your outcome. It creates opportunity. That's how luck is struck, is through your attitude and your mindset. So we're speaking the same language. And I think, when I think about, sorry, I wanted to go somewhere with that. When it comes to attitude, when you combine that with the concept of networking, I always say that, people are going to know you for what you've done, being an athlete, being a former athlete, having this really cool background, diverse background, but they're going to love you for who you are. And I think, it can be tricky trying to build a network when you're transitioning, because you sort of feel like you have this identity as a football player or as a baseball player. Or maybe in your professional career, it was like, oh, I was a guy that was an econ major and I worked at creative arts agency, right? Now I'm trying to become a doctor. Some people out there might say to themselves, who am I? Who am I to go and do this? And there's that attitude that can sometimes creep in, the negative attitude of like the self-doubt, the lack of confidence, not trusting ourselves. What piece of advice would you have for people around that? Like, how do you frame your attitude in such a powerful way? What do you think has been the key for you?
Yeah, and again, as I said before, I want to make sure we discuss it. It's always it can be a challenge, and it's not like it has been an easy process every single time, right? We're all human. We all experience those moments and those environments and those times in our life where our attitude is not appropriate, and we're not approaching that aspect of life with the right attitude. No, I think just in general for me, what has helped again is that these things were instilled in me in a young age, so then it became kind of a part of me. But I think even when you're transitioning, we've talked about this a bunch of times. When you're transitioning from sport to life after sport, for example, that is challenging, right? You have this. You're leaving your culture. You don't know what the next culture and the next environment is going to be when you go there. You're losing your entire social network that you've worked with. You have all of these short-term goals as an athlete, the next lift, the next run, the next game, the next practice. And these are all real things. I watched film last practice. I want to get better from the last practice, even every single day. So all these new short-term goals. And then you can get life, and some of us can get lost a little bit, where life seems a bit more expansive. You don't have all these short-term goals. You don't have this same structure that you've had in the past as an athlete, because let's face it, our lives were incredibly structured. And whether we like to admit it or not, we grew to love that structure. We grew to be comfortable with that structure. And so part of me going to medicine too, once I got back into it, I did love the structure of it again. I knew I had 4 years of medical school. This is my next thing. This is the thing that I had to look forward to and study for. I had 5 years of orthopedic surgery residency. Then I was going to go into fellowship. That was going to be a year. I ended up doing 3 fellowships. But the point is, that was that path and that was that structure all along. And so I then was comfortable with that. But I think approaching these different things is realizing that even when you're transitioning, even when you're going back to being, the low rung of the totem pole again, for example, whatever it may be in life, or you go into an environment that you're not sure of, you're not familiar with because you haven't been there yet, still having that confidence inside you that, I belong here. I belong here. These other people they don't have it all figured out either. And, having that confidence in yourself that you belong and you have something to offer, So when you showed up as a freshman at Northwestern, that was an anxiety and provoking environment. You didn't know if you were ever going to start at Northwestern. You didn't know how you were going to compete against all those athletes. But what did you have inside you? You did have that little inner voice saying, you know what? I belong here. I belong here, and I'm going to prove that I belong here. And I'm excited to meet this challenge that I have in front of me to show myself and to show others here that I belong here. And then I have something to offer this team. And so I think for people that are transitioning, whatever it is, from sport into life or different aspects of their life, don't view your transition as a failure and a loss. No, view it as a thing in your life that is wonderful that you had that. Try to grab those great experiences that you had during that aspect of your life to help enrich and support you moving forward, and realize and have the confidence that, whatever comes in my direction, I will be ready and prepared, and I will respond to that, in the right way, as I kind of always have it. And I have something to offer this next company, this next job, this next aspect of life.
It's a really great perspective. I love how you frame that, because one of our deepest desires as human beings is to feel belonging. It's really like a primal need, it's like a tribal thing. Like, if we're not part of a tribe, then, we could, we could die, we could starve on our own, lone wolfing it, right? So to belong to a tribe, to belong in general, there's the mental component of that, and then there's the physical component, like there's belonging in the sense of like the human race, right? We can all make that happen. But then there's the mental belonging that you're really referring to, which is like, I belong here. And that comes from within. Nobody can grant that to you. Like a sense of, man, I'm here for a reason. And I have something to offer. There's that spark, that fire that is unique. And this situation needs me, and I belong here. That's a choice.
Completely agree with you. And I would say that also is that time where your social support system that you have hopefully built over the years and realize that you need comes into play to help you, right?
Right.
They help you build that confidence. That confidence isn't all within you. And when I say confidence, I mean a humbled confidence, not a cocky overconfidence, a humbled confidence.
Right.
But confidence is not always a bad thing, and that can be good as well. Confident that you're the appropriate person for the job, that you belong in that environment. So confidence is a good
100%.
thing, but a humbled confidence. Those support structures, call it your family, your best friend that's become family, whoever that may be, they help build that in you. They're the ones sitting there on the phone in the back of your, behind you saying, no, you're the one that got the job. You're the one that did this. You're the one that competed. They're lucky to have you. Those are the people that help build you up and help frame that environment. So then now you have that confidence going into it. So like I said, I think we do it too often, and I'm probably one of the worst at it, is not discussing the fact that we all have help. We all constantly have help. We all need that help. And realizing that we need is probably one of the greatest first steps that you can take, is realizing that you do need a strong support system, figuring out who that is, surrounding yourself with people that are going to support you and that are invested in your success and your happiness in life, and trying to surround yourself with those other people that approach life and with the same attitude that you want to approach life.
Right. You're spot on. This is really helping me understand really what you mean by like support network, like that support system. Like these are the real like tangible items that we're talking about. The people that can see us sometimes when we can't see ourselves, that can lift us up when we forget sometimes, because we all do. I really find, sometimes it does take a third party perspective to remind us what we got inside of us and to play a bigger game, to go after the things we really want and remind us who we are sometimes. So I think that's
say that we are too close to ourselves,
Yeah.
We know our, sometimes, and that's the reality. And we are, some of these decisions we're living in our mind constantly, in these different stages of life. So you need that third party perspective of someone that is emotionally involved enough that they care about your success and your happiness, but not emotionally involved so much because they're a little bit removed from it, and they can give you more of an objective perspective on that.
Right. And I think it's so important that those people, you trust them, you respect them, and they love you, because some feedback doesn't land, some people's feedback, you don't need to take, you can take it with a grain of salt. You can let it brush off your shoulders, but the right people are going to tell it to you straight. They're going to give you the best feedback and acknowledgement possible. I think there's something to be said for, in our culture, we don't give enough acknowledgement. We don't notice the value that people have in our life. So I love that you're touching on this so heavily, the power of the people in your life. And I hope anybody listening to this, if I have one piece of homework for you, is like, think of the top 3 people in your life that have had an impact on you, that have been a support system in your life. Reach out to them, send them a message, send them a voice note, call them, go take them out to coffee and thank them for the impact they've had on your life. That is like If there's
I, lo-
anything else I could take away from this like call, it's like that's my 2 cents, and I
I
want to hear
love that.
what you have to say too.
No, I love that you just said that
Yeah.
because when we're younger, and I don't know what it is because females go through it too. Like meaning we talked to multiple of our friends, that are
Mhm.
strong athletes that didn't discuss or share or do a lot of those things, and they wanted to be tough. You know what I mean? And they wanted to, and that
Right.
was a big persona. And I think for us, is this what we know? I think male athletes have, especially if you're football or but any sport for that matter. But these are the sports that we're involved in that we know you have that persona. You got to be tough. And what does
Right.
that mean? I don't know. As a young kid and as a young athlete, you kind of think that you don't not going to share things. There's nothing you
Right.
can't tackle. There's nothing you can't handle on your own.
Yeah.
You don't need anybody else.
Hmm.
You're independent and you can do these things. And that gets instilled in you. And it's not until later when a few things, right? You've lived life, you realize
Hmm.
that's entirely untrue. And
Hmm.
then the more you start discussing that thing and realizing those things, you then quickly find out that, wait a minute, every single other one of my teammates and friends and social networks around me has been going through the exact same thing that I've been going through, but we haven't talked about it ever,
Yes.
for however long. And we've sort of been, helping each other in certain ways, but then not discussing something because, I don't want to be, like I said, considered weak or considered,
Right. Right.
not confident or whatever, or I don't want to expose a vulnerability,
Right.
to a young, again, because that's what we are, young male athletes.
Right.
That was a bad word,
Taboo. Yep.
and
Total
so
taboo.
you realize through life, and then you realize, I guess, as you just get older. And so, yeah, I completely agree with you. What have I done now in life for many, many years now? And my brother's been the same. I thank my parents. I thank my mentors. I'm constantly telling them how much I appreciate them
Hmm.
and like you said, not just because the moment has happened that then calls for it. No, randomly when I see them. Hey, you
Right.
know what? I just want to let you know how much I appreciate everything that you did for me X amount of years ago when you did that and the
Hmm.
other thing. That really meant a lot to me. And
Right.
the vast majority of the time, they don't realize that it meant so much to you. It was something they were happy to do, but they really, I'll tell you, really love hearing that feedback. They really love
Hmm.
hearing that. And so I've done that, and I do it constantly, and I think it's so extraordinarily important. Tell my family members, my parents, how much I love them, my brother. Tell my friends, how important they are to me,
Yeah.
and how important they
Yep.
are in my life. And I think all those are important. And then I try to tell my med students or residents and such that I work with too, to do the same thing. You know what I mean? To
Hmm.
to make sure that they're letting each other know, and I try to do that with everybody that I work with as well. Let them know how
Hmm.
much I do appreciate what they do with me and for me and to help me in life.
We're not saying the word. I don't think we've said it yet, but this is like the kind of fuzzy, kind of warm feeling that we all as men really do feel, but we don't like to acknowledge. It's that sense of love. Like we love the people in our life. You mentioned the word actually love, right? Like I don't want to say we didn't, but it's really that sense of love. Like we have joy, we have gratitude, and you hit the nail on the head. A lot of men, a lot of athletes are really taught just to be like tough, and when we say tough, that essentially means like cut out all emotion, including the good stuff, including all the gratitude and the joy and the excitement, and
And I
like
think that that's how we misinterpreted it to me.
yes, we missed the message.
That wasn't toughness,
Right.
and
Hmm.
many times it's just it's stupidity and it's little boneheadedness. It's just
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that was a misinterpretation on our part. That's how we thought culturally and society viewed you as tough for whatever reasons.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then as I said, I don't feel any less tough these days than
Hmm.
I did prior.
Hmm.
If anything else, without question, yourself better and yourself more, and you have a
Yeah.
lot more confidence to share these things and say these things and have
Yeah.
conversations with people. Or I know now that if I bring that up to someone that is a younger, male athlete, that I'm confident that they're going to look back at me and smile and nod their head and say, "Oh, yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking and exactly how I feel." Because now, having lived life a little bit and gone through the experience, I know that they're going to react that way. But before, when we
Right.
were younger, how are they going to respond when I say this, when I say that, when
Hmm.
you were not sure?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like the standard procedure is like you kind of shrug it off, or you kind of brush it off, or like, oh, you don't, more like you're the best. I'm not the best. You're the best. I'm just trying to be like you. Like we deflect so often. So I love that we're talking about this because it's so powerful. Like this is really where the juice is.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to kind of leave the floor open to you for the last couple minutes to share anything that maybe we haven't touched on, something that you would like to leave the athletes that maybe are considering transition or in the middle of transition. Any pieces of wisdom that you can really impart on them. What would that be like to the people that are mid transition? What would you tell them right now?
The only thing I guess I would say is just kind of reiterate some of the things that we've already discussed, because we've touched upon them so much, and I know you and I have talked about this quite a bit. But really, generally speaking, is to know that things are going to work out. Now, why will they work out? Not because the world has some sort of mystical way in making them work out. Is that you, as the athlete, you're going to figure out a way to make it work out, right? Meaning you're going to respond to that next obstacle in life. The way that you always have responded to obstacles in life, and you're gonna make that work out. Now, whether it's down that one path or not, that's why I said one of those very important things is not to view different paths as failures. While you're doing that, make sure that you built that strong social sort of family friend network that is there to support you. Be confident when you're going into these different things. Always try to bring the right attitude with you, because your attitude absolutely will dictate those outcomes. Life is just like sports. The better prepared you are going in and heading into any environment, the more likely you are to receive that opportunity because you have the right attitude, and then the more likely you are to capitalize on that opportunity when you have it. And that network's going to help you do that. The network's also going to help you, I would argue, to help create opportunities for you. They're also going to help you to realize how wonderful an opportunity that is. And they might help you to sidestep some opportunities that may not be so wonderful. And so again, really fully embracing the fact that you will not go about any of this by yourself, nor should you. And that you belong there, that you are, view all of this as an exciting challenge, the next transitions that you have, and that, yes, you might be leaving some of your identity behind a little bit, but carry that with you. You're not a football player now, Q. I'm not a football player and haven't been one for a very long time, but I carry some of that mentality. I carry all those experiences, those learned and lived experiences with me. And I still, I'm still an athlete in my life, but those are things that it's okay that you're moving, on beyond from that, because I'll tell you, what are you going to do in life? You're going to meet other people in other aspects of your life that are now going to build upon, not going to replace, they're going to build upon that pre-existing family, friend, social network that you have, and they're going to just enrich your life and enrich your environment. So be open to that. Know that the next steps, you don't know who it's going to be. You don't know what they're going to look like. You don't know what their name's going to be, just like you didn't know any of those things when you went from high school to college. And then what did you do? You made incredible friends, incredible teammates. You built that new family environment. You're going to do the same thing when you go out into life, and be open to bringing those people into your life, and to letting those people in. I mean, Q, you and I have gotten to know each other extraordinarily well here. And it's been a wonderful thing for me, as we talk about these things, to get to know you so well, and to learn from you, and to see different ways in which you approach life, to share stories together, because we have very similar lived experiences. But, I remember when we first met, I had the attitude that, I can't wait to meet this guy. I'm going to, I want to get to know him. I want to get to know what he's about. I can't wait to share some stories with each other, and then really just dive into that. I did the same when I went to medical school, and I went to residency, and then when I went to fellowships, and I have so many incredible friends that have become family members for those different aspects of my life, because I was open to that. I think I would say anybody transitioning, you're gonna meet so many more incredible people in your life that are gonna have different meaning to you, because it's going to be a different level of life and a different part of life. They're going to support you in different ways, but it's not that you're not leaving that other identity behind. Just take it with you. keep it in your back pocket. It's going to help fuel you, but know that there's so many more incredible experiences of life that are coming, and other people that are going to fill your life and help you in multiple ways, and enrich your life, in addition to and just add to the pre-existing sort of family and social and friends network that you have.
I love it, Robert. Well, I would love to really end it and cap it on that note. You did a great job of really encapsulating our conversation. So I want to thank you for your insights, your time, your contribution, in supporting this cause, and obviously being on Athlete Soul's board and supporting the mission. The mission, I want to remind the folks that are watching or listening that the mission of Athlete Soul is to support athletes as they transition away from sports, raise awareness about the challenges of athletic retirement, and encourage athletes to develop beyond sports. We offer a lot of services that support athletes from all levels of sport. They're all free. And for more information about the organization and to watch the transition talks like this, visit the website at athletesoul.org. Thank you so much, Robert. This has been a blast. I look forward to more conversations like this. And thank you again for your time.
It's been a pleasure, Q. Thanks for having me. And thanks again for your friendship, and look forward to having many more of these conversations with you, and working on behalf of Athlete Soul, and working with athletes moving forward and helping in their transition, and showing them that there's a way and that there is a huge community here for them.
There's more where that came from. I love that, Robert. All right, Robert. Thank you.